great to have Arbana tonight. Arbana, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And you've been coming to Salon. How many times you've been?
3-4 times.
3-4 times, and many more, I hope, in the future. And I'm glad to have you as a guest finally.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
So Arbana, I will start from introduction. I will ask you a couple of questions, and then we'll ask our audience to ask their questions. I know you have fascinating story, and we have a lot of things to talk about. So I'm very excited about this. So Arbana Xharra is an internationally recognized investigative journalist and a leading expert on religious radicalization. Her groundbreaking reporting has been featured in the major global media outlets and prominent academic journals exposing Islamic extremist networks. In 2015, she received the prestigious International Woman of Courage Award from the US State Department in recognition of her work. After being brutally attacked in Kosovo for her investigation, Arbana was forced to flee and now lives in exile here in the United States, where she continues to be a powerful voice for truth, transparency, and the empowerment of women in conflict and post-conflict region.
Thank you.
Bravo, Arbana. So I will start. I would like to ask you about your personal story. So can you tell us what made you start in journalism?
So first of all, thank you for coming at this nasty weather. I don't know how many of you probably remember the war in Kosovo during 1999. So I was 17. And we were, for the most part of the war in Kosovo, me and my 2 sisters and my parents. And I still remember I'm the older one. We were 17, 15, and 12. And we were asking my parents if we are going to be killed by bullet or massacred, because we, as a kid, trying to believe that we are going to be killed in the easiest way. And we were saved. We were saved by NATO. We were saved by the United States. We were saved by Western countries. You probably read in the media, Kosovo, majority Muslims, but it's a secular state. It's one of the most pro-American country. They name kids after politicians. Madeleine Albright. We have American statues, and we name streets because we've been always grateful. And if I may go back a little bit, during the Second World War, if you've read, there are New York Times articles that Albania is the country that saved mostly the Jews during the Second World War. So a religion for us was not important. Serbs, we were under Serbian regime. They killed those that will say they are Muslim, but they didn't practice religion, or Catholics. For us was being Albanian, survived as an Albanian. So during the war, we escaped after 2 months to Albania. And at the border, there were journalists waiting for refugees. And they asked me a question. And I was very young. At the broken English that I could speak, I shared with the world what is happening back in Kosovo. And I have realized the power of being the voice of voiceless. The Serbs committed genocide. After the war, I was still in the high school. And then I decided to start journalism. There was the first school of journalism, came a lot of professors, international professors, and this is how, I think the moment when we escaped to Albania, that moment when I spoke, I realized the importance of being a journalist.
I'm also a journalist, so I know this point when you should choose your specialization, your area of interest. So what made you start writing about Islamic groups, knowing that Kosovo are mostly majority Muslim?
As I said, with constitution, we are a secular state, so they don't even allow headscarves at school. After the war, I didn't immediately start writing about the rise of the extremist Islamist groups. Kosovo was a new country, building the new institution. A lot of money was coming from abroad. The first 10 years, I was focused on mostly economy, writing about politics, writing about corruption. I had a lot of stories. I find out how there were big businessmen, the huge companies supporting, for example, I had a case which they sued me and asking $700,000 from me because of the story that I did, how this company was supporting a certain political parties during the pre-election campaign. And as soon as that political party came to the power, they gave them one source tender $60 million, so 60, not 16. And I had all the sources and I exposed them. And I was called to the court in 5 days. Usually when you sue somebody, they wait for years maybe until your case come up. And I had a lot of support, international support. They reacted, they said, keep an eye on this case because this is more than a journalist and a businessman. This involves the whole state. And when you go through all this, but as I said, we were all focused on becoming an independent country. For the first time, we don't have Serbs here. We have international presence. We were not paying attention what is happening. In meantime, a lot of Saudi Arabia organization came in Kosovo. They were taking advantage of poverty. We came out of the war. Parents didn't have the awareness what might happen to their kids. Under the charity purposes, they start offering free English and computer courses to the kids 7 to 10, 12 years old. And this is how they start. This is how I learned the way they recruit. Start offering free English and computer courses, and of course, in meantime, they try to recruit them. Start learning about religion. Oh yeah, you are Muslim. This is the way you should start praying. This is the way. They start being spread firstly in the more rural areas of the Kosovo villages, and then they start building new mosques. Some of them were illegal. What happened? Saudis were giving a lot of scholarship to the imams. Imams went back in these countries, the students become imams. They came back and they became very popular. They knew how to use social media. They became much better than other institutions that should educate kids. They start having a lot of influence. And we start seeing more covered women, men with short pants and beards, which is a Wahhabi. And I said, after 10 years, you know what? I'm going to see what is happening. I'm going to go and investigate this. I won a fellowship. I had a budget to investigate, and I didn't focus only in Kosovo. I went to London, and I find the Pakistani organization that was bringing money to brainwash kids because they had an agenda. So this is what other powers from Middle East were trying to influence. Kosovo geographically is Europe, even though it's not a part of EU still. So this is how I started. Then it switched with Turkish influence, the Erdogan, who is trying to influence Europe and the Balkan. And it became my mission. Why? Because as I shared with you, I've experienced war. I know what freedom means. I know and what means being grateful to the West for saving us, and the risk of this group, how can they turn the whole society? And my point was, we have to save the secular state. We should not allow Saudis, Turks, whoever want to take advantage, because we've suffered for hundreds of years under first on the Ottoman Empire, then Serbs, and we really suffered a lot. So this is how I then decided to write more, and became like a daily thing for me.
Were you worried that something might happen with you?
I started having threats, online threats. I remember one day I was passing through downtown Pristina, the capital, and I saw this Islamic youth, these men they were spreading the material, Islamic material to kids. So kids were coming after school. And I just made a post on Facebook and I said, state should react. Police should remove them. They should not be allowed to use kids. It was Friday. From Friday to Monday, I cannot even count how many threats I received. And I went to the police, and I remember the young policeman was taking my statement, and he said to me, oh, why you are not writing about this Christian, some young man spreading materials? And I said, because this is the risk that is coming since after the war. They were already 10 years after the war. ISIS didn't exist at that time. When I started writing about extremist groups, there was no ISIS. So they were working underground. what happened in 2012, I published that investigative piece that I said I won a fellowship. I went to London, and it took me 8 months to investigate what is happening in Kosovo, Macedonia, Albania, so part of Serbia. I wanted to find out the truth, how they are managing to recruit 300 men and women join Islamic State in 2014. I went to interview their parents, what is happening, because I knew that even though their parents were declared Muslims, I knew that they are not radicalized families. They were all these kids that they grew up. As I said, after the war, they were going to these courses, they start going to this mosque. Frankly, these imams become idols for them. They had a huge impact. There was an imam saying, you have to go to Syria and fight for Sharia law. And I said, though, this we should not. I need to raise awareness. The fear was if these groups will become a part of institution, because when they come to parliament, they're going to change laws. And I interviewed the guy who said, yes, when the day comes, we want Sharia law. But like, no, this country suffered a lot to allow you and bring Sharia law. Because if you go to Pristina, even today, you have coffee bars full of young men and women drinking. So you are not going to change this reality. In 2015, I received the award as a woman of courage. At the time was Obama. And yes, it helps you a lot because they recognize your work. But then you have all this group that use all the possible ways to do the propaganda against you. Arbana is working for Mossad. Arbana is getting money from Americans to write against Islam. And you are asking me if I was scared. I was very young when I started doing this. I had kids when I was in my early 20s. I didn't really understand the risk that I'm getting into. As I said, I was receiving threats on a daily basis, and then became normality. Like nothing is happening to me. Already I went to the court for these corrupted people, and now what they're gonna do. And in 2017, I was in Albania, which is our neighbor country, in 3 hours drive. And usually I do make public, I'm gonna speak at this TV, it's live show. And that night when I came back, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, I was brutally attacked at the parking garage. I do think that it was planned because I used to speak on a daily basis. That night I was speaking about Erdogan, how he's building mosques, how he's bringing money not through banks, but bypassing banks. And he's trying to influence, to spread his Islamic agenda. And that night I was brutally attacked. As I said, let me mention something. Before this, 2 or 3 weeks before this, someone came and they find out. It's easy because it's a small country to find out where you live. And they draw the red cross next to the apartment door where I live. And my son at the time was 7 years old. He was the first to see as soon as he came back after school. So probably it didn't happen early in the morning because we would see it. We went to work. Police came and they said, oh, don't bother. They are just trying to scare you. If they want to do something to you, they would by now.
Did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They sent me a photo. I remember ISIS, they were showing photos of the killed person with the orange stuff. I don't know if you remember. So they sent me a photo of the killed person, his head cut off, and they said to me in Albanian written, we know how much you love your own children, we're going to find you. Again, I reported everything. The attack happened. As I said, in 2017, I started doing this years before, and I really didn't think that this might happen.
Did anyone from Kosovo institution protected you?
I'm telling you, I went to the police, nothing. The only door open for me was the US embassy. They were diplomats, they were ambassadors, that they were also, I had a regular meeting with them because as diplomats, they don't really speak up. They're not gonna say, oh, you have to fight extremism. They don't speak these kind of things. But I was among a few journalists and the first one to start going in field, and they knew that I have information. They wanted my opinion, what is happening. So they knew there were Americans that would say to me, if you don't feel safe, come into our home. But no, even after the attack, I came. Their Reporters Without Borders and a lot of organizations, they said, we're going to sponsor you, leave. I came here with my older son because at the time he was 12 and it really affected him mentally. And I came for a month. It's hard because I grew up being a journalist and it's hard to leave your country. I used to come very often here, at least twice a year as a journalist, but to just take the decision, come and live, it's not easy. I went back hoping that they would find out who attacked me. What I find out was that the prosecutor that had my case, until then he was just doing the cases of the traffic tickets. And imagine, he was about to find out who attacked me, and then continuously, like, people were saying, like, oh, she should be killed, she is an Islamophobe, she is a... And then I said, you know, I cannot really risk my kids. They were the reason I moved here, and just because of their safety.
How was the transition period for her?
It was not easy. I was lucky to find a platform to work. I work for the Alan Ben Mir Institute. We cover Middle East. As soon as I start writing for them, I start covering for this institute Balkans, Kosovo, Serbia, and these issues more. It's not easy to raise alone. I have my sister here that support me a lot, but raising two boys in New York, it's not really easy. But I didn't want to be silent because I knew they were trying to silence me. And now it's a different path. It's different because I meet, like, I didn't know that you have from Iran women that are very liberal, that are against the regime. What happened in October 7 in Israel, there is this Iranian filmmaker. She moved here 10 years ago, and she posted something, and I was like, and she said, yeah, we Iranians are, because what our regime is doing, we share the same problems, and we want to escape from that regime. And then you realize more when you meet these people. One of my friends is the first Afghan pilot. We both received the award at the State Department. She's the first female Afghan. She became a pilot. American helped her in Afghanistan. As soon as she became a pilot, she started having problems. They almost killed her brother because you were not supposed. So then you realize more than just what I was writing. I was investigating how they are brainwashing. And then you start to realize more about what happened actually in the Islamic country, what is happening with this ideology, why they are trying to expand. We have now the fight for powers, West and East. And then when you meet with these people, you learn more. And you see the situation differently when you are outside. I have to mention something is very important. In my journey, there were Muslim people that helped me. There were those who were against extremist groups. I have a friend who is an imam. He was giving me information, because as a woman, it's hard. You cannot go to the mosque and listen to the imam preaching because there are all men there. But I have sources within their community giving me information, because we are, first of all, Albanians. And being Albanian is more important than being a Muslim. And I have imams who think like this. So I really am grateful and thankful, because I wouldn't be able to do my job without their help.
Let's back for investigating for a minute.
Yeah.
Can you tell us something you regret what you did during investigation?
I regret taking the risk to that point that I would risk my own kid. When I was doing this investigation in 2012, which is very selfish, I was very young. I took my son, at the time he was 7, to Macedonia to interview the guy who was, just a few months before I interviewed him, arrested, being suspected to be an Al-Qaeda member. I took my son thinking that I'm gonna interview him. And when he sees me as a mother, he might accept me in his home. Yes, I went into his home.
He might not kill you.
And I was not thinking like what might happen. So I think when you are young, you don't realize the risk of, and I took my son, and he still remembers. We went to his home. He opened the computer for my son to play while I was interviewing him. But it was very dangerous, because you don't know who you are meeting. It was the first time I've met that person, and I read a lot of things about him. It's very controversial and dangerous person.
How did it go?
Yeah, I interviewed him, and then I had his statement into that article. As I said, it was my first investigation that was published, and I revealed a lot of information about the whole region. And then I exposed them, and I had a lot of information. All the people, the money flow, who is investing, who is paying, where the money is coming from. Undercover people that you will say, oh, he's have a car wash, but he was basically, and as a woman, not just in Kosovo, even here in journalism, it's not easy because you are not just attacked as a journalist, you are also attacked as a woman. And you kind of get to double attack comparing to male journalists. So yeah, I regret doing that. I would not do that now. So otherwise, no, I cannot go back. I still have a case, an imam, which I wrote about him. He's a part of Wahhabi organization. He sued me in 2016, and I still have the court case with him. And whatever I write, I'm still very active, and they know me, and I cannot go back. But I really miss doing journalism in field because it's different to just go and interview and do investigation rather than sitting here is safe and from here to write.
I was about to ask, how has your career developed here in US
Yes.
as a journalist?
I
know you're doing some interesting research.
Yes, right now I'm doing a research about the Erdogan, and probably you've read about what is happening. He's trying to influence a lot of, especially EU, but you've seen what happened yesterday in DC, killing 2 diplomats of Israeli embassy. So you can never underestimate the risk. One extreme will raise the other, fuel the other extreme. So yeah, I'm focused on how they are trying to expand their agenda in the Western countries. As I said, I'm starting soon my podcast. I'm going to share stories of the women coming from, mostly from Middle East, through them to share what it means and how dangerous this ideology is. And yeah, I'm trying to keep up, and still, it's different way of writing, not the way I used to, but yeah, I'm still active.
When I read about you, I saw you in a big trouble with Turkey.
Yeah.
Is it true you cannot travel there?
Yes, since 2013. So when I started writing about illegal mosque, and Erdogan also bought a lot of assets in the Balkans. He bought airport, energy distribution. So for you who are in the economy and finance, you realize how much impact you have when you invest. And then, as I said, I started following his Islamic agenda, not just in Kosovo. And the Turkish ambassador, both of them, at those years that, because they change every 3-4 years, they wrote open letter against me saying that she is trying to destroy a relationship of Albania with Turkey. And yeah, so I cannot travel. I'm going to be immediately arrested. I don't know if you've read the news a couple of weeks ago, this Swedish journalist who only covered the protest against Erdogan as soon as he went to Turkey, and he is still in jail. And even though the state politicians are asking for his release, he's not going to release. So right now, Turkey is the largest jail for journalists. And you have Turks who are very open-minded. And I have friends here who escaped from Erdogan's regime. And as I said, now from here, you see, wait a minute. There are people who don't want this regime. There were protests there, protesting against him because he arrested his opponent, the Istanbul mayor. So now my expertise is expanding more than just Kosovo. It's for different parts of the world.
Thank you, Arbana. I know we have a lot of questions. We have a journalist here and even a guest from UN. Maybe he would like to ask questions. So we will give a chance to our audience. Who would like to be first? Yes, Jim.
This may be a difficult, complex question, but
we love that.
one of the issues that Europe is facing is the idea of being a pluralistic society, a democratic society, a tolerant society, with, but also for centuries very sort of culturally pure societies with very strong, old traditions, certain way of doing things. So with large numbers of immigrants, societies that are pluralistic and open, and this is happening in issues in the US as well, where people are saying, we can't handle the pace of immigration. Our culture will change, but you have it in systems which are, democratic and tolerant, so forth. So how do you navigate that difference where you have immigrant societies that are not culturally pluralistic and maybe have a more religiously authoritarian perspective, so that were they to gain power, as you said, they may not want to continue the pluralistic traditions. But numerically, they, under law, would be treated the same. So how do you navigate that difference between treating people the same, but also not treating them the same?
Exactly. It's very Thank you. It's very complex. Since we are very close to Europe, I used to travel a lot. And when I went to Sweden, it's a perfect country. Like, religion is separated from state. They take care of elders. But you have immigrants living so they're marginalized, it's separate. Like it's not easy to live in the Swedish neighborhood. You can be born there, we're coming from the immigrant family, but you are never considered Swedish. Meantime, as I said, I'm going to take an example, Erdogan, what happened in 2018. Austria was the only country that closed the mosques because they realized that he is using mosques to influence, because he wants to become a leader of Muslim world. Now, I'm not talking only about Turks there. There are all these immigrants feeling that they are not having the same rights. They are coming as immigrants and they are becoming these small groups under this mosque, which authoritarian regimes are using them for their agenda. And the Austria was the only country that expelled 60 imams to Turkey. They closed mosques and said, no, you are not going to have election campaign here addressing to these people, because soon they are going to become problematic for us. What happened? He came to Balkans because it was easier for him to address to his voters. Now you are seeing every day the right wing in Europe becoming more powerful, because they have a lot of cases to convince people. See what we have: terrorist attack in the Germany, the guy that went with the truck and killed people. So both sides are using the narratives. Now people, they're saying, no, we don't want them coming here and saying to my kids, you have to be as I am. I don't want them to influence our Western culture. We are tired of immigrants, right? And I'm seeing more and more Europe becoming right-wing because of this. They give a lot of money to Turkey to keep Syrian immigrants. Syrian immigrants are going through hell in Turkey because they want them out of Turkey. You have Arab countries which they don't want immigrants. You have Egypt, they don't want Palestinians, right? You have a lot of them, they don't want to have to deal with them because of possible recruitment of these radical groups within the immigrants. I remember when we were writing about when the Syria war started, and we had journalists going to Hungary to interview them, and we were impressed interviewing young Syrians, doctors, architects. You see, because you have an impression from an extremist guy doing an attack, but then the whole society is being influenced by them and they don't want them. In the meantime, you have Europe and Western countries which have rules and laws. They have to protect them. In Greece, they are leaving immigrants dying in the seas every day, if you read about that. So, but again, in Europe, as I said, you can be born then. If your family, it's not like here, it's different. Yeah, we've seen a lot of racism in the United States, but in Europe, they tend to be, as I said, it doesn't matter your skin color. You can be even white. You are not considered Swedish or German. So politics are also to be blamed. They use a lot of conflicts for their own agenda. Like, for example, Erdogan comes up in support of Palestinian cause. Does he care? No. No, he is just using this for his. Why? He's killing Kurdish people every day in Syria. So they are using conflicts to then come back to what I've been doing to have their army behind them. And it's easy because now with social media, with algorithm, you don't have to go to the course for free to get English and computer courses now. On the gaming platform, they recruit young men and women. On social media, so are so many ways that they can recruit. And you don't know what is happening. And I said in Kosovo, we never thought that 300 men will be capable of going to join Islamic State. I have to go back when I said I went to interview their families because I want to know what happened. Let me mention you one case. There is Albanians during the Milosevic regime in 90s. So they close all the school factories, and people have to go in diaspora and live and bring money so to make a living. So this man used to live in Germany for 30 years. After the war, he came, he had money, and he opened like a small factory to produce some wooden stairs, something. And he had two young boys, 18 and 20 years old. He had money. And in that village where he started his business, there was a mosque with this imam, as I said, the young imam that went educated in Saudi Arabia and came here. He radicalized both of his kids, the men, pro-American. He was telling us the story, interviewed him, what happened with your kids? He said, listen, they had money. I will give them hundreds of euros. They didn't need money, but they were influenced by this imam. And he said, son came home and they were like, America, they are against Muslims. I said, no, watch. He said, I opened YouTube. I showed them because they were born after the war in Kosovo. Americans helped us. It's not true what this imam is preaching you. Both of his kids ended up in Syria. At the time while I was still there, I don't know. I think one of them got killed and the other one just lost the hand. I went to interview also other parents. They said, no, this is not our tradition. We are not like this. This tells you a lot that no matter what religion you are or ethnicity, you can be a target. If you are mentally, as a teenager, struggling, it's the sense of belonging. In the beginning, I thought it's economy. Yeah, it is economy. But now we are seeing also kids of the rich families are becoming a part because of this group. So there are different ways of the way they can recruit, and they use social media, they use these videos of the war, sensitive footages, and you know how the algorithm works. If you watch a video, you're gonna watch more and more, and then they know how to target specific individuals.
Let's take
Yeah.
other questions. David?
So we've had, we've had almost a year and a half of protests at Columbia. So today, Christina froze Harvard's ability to enroll foreign students, saying we need to have a full accounting of who we're actually bringing into this university. Because, and I'm not exactly sure, I'm just wondering if you have some intel, but there were Hamas-affiliated people that were part of, I call it the Tentifada, right? But that were part of the students that were occupying it. I think there was a woman who was associated with one of the Hamas leaders who was actually on the Columbia campus. Would you see that, was that a recruitment effort on their part? Like, how would you see this organization of university protests that took place all across?
I came
Thank you,
here.
Ivy League?
Yeah, I came here in 2018, so even before the October 7 of 2023. And I was about to start this investigation how Qatar is bringing money in the United States.
Right.
Yeah. As I said, they are everywhere. And they use this as a younger generation that they have no idea. You cannot call for death of America with Hamas flag in the Washington, D.C. if you're against this war and you're against the killing of civilians. But you cannot call, when you go, because we used to go in the U.S. Embassy for visa, right? And they interview you. You cannot, with the visa, come here and but these are the law. If they know that you are going to be a part of any of this, you are not getting the visa. Not just a student, but you are not going allowed to be here. But we are not seeing this only from the few foreign students. We are seeing this, as I said, also from the younger generation who don't understand the Middle East. They don't understand what is happening. As I said, they don't understand that Erdogan doesn't care about Palestinians because he's killing Kurds. They don't. Why? Because they have been infiltrated into universities and everywhere. As I said, not just in the United States, also in other Western countries. They fill the gap. China sending food to Gaza, they are trying to fill the gap. Israel has the right to protect themselves because if Israel was not capable to, Hamas will destroy Israel on October 7, right?
Yeah.
But Israel has the capacity to. I don't want to go into details because I'm here to talk about something else, but what I'm trying to say, all that, even this person that killed these two innocent diplomats of the Israel, we have to see because right now we might have negotiation for the ceasefire. We don't know what is happening. Who is that person? That person is not immigrant. He is from Chicago. He was arrested. He is American, right? So he's not a student. What I'm trying to say is that we should see this in different way. In ISIS, there were Christians from United States, from Canada that joined Islamic State. Not Muslim, not just immigrants, but also Western kids. Because as I said, they are managing, they are, in Kosovo, for example, when I was writing, there were some very smart students that have influence within their own campus trying to spread the ideology because they were recruited from this group. And I mentioned I'm from Kosovo, and I told you, Kosovo is pro-American country. We are grateful. If they managed in one of the, we have kids named Tony Blair, Madeleine Albright. So whatever we have, celebration, we have American flag among Albanian flag. So that's what I'm trying to say. Whatever conflict that is happening, they are going to use. And then you have white supremacists who are anti-Semitic. Not only immigrants. You remember 2017 in Virginia, all this propaganda, Jewish took over everything. They have banks, you are not going to replace us. They were white supremacists. They were having this rally in Virginia. So it is more than what we see every day on TV and reports. So it is sad because you have one side and the other side. It's sometimes very hard to have a balanced opinion on the situation, but Middle East is very complex. And as I said, if you invite to this national TVs, invite an Afghan girl that tells you the story, what it means to live under the regime of this Iranian filmmaker, to share the story and educate the Western people more.
I think what's happened yesterday, it took all situation to the different level. So definitely
anti-Semitism has raised drastically, and as I said, it's a very complex situation. When I had some reaction, and I had a post on my social media long time before the conflict of Palestinian and Israel, the anti-Semitism. I worked for the Professor Alan Ben Mir. He was born in Baghdad, and when he was 7, he was deported. So it is very complex. Of course, this conflict fuels the anti-Semitism. But as I said, when I started writing about these groups and the way they recruit, not even ISIS existed. And I start noticing that they work ahead of us, and we should not really underestimate that.
And we should talk about this because a few of my friends, when I invited them to the event, they say, we're not coming because we're not sure it's safe to come here.
The only the reaction that I had was in 2018, I was invited at the NYU, and it was not just me. There was this former police from the Turkey who have found out that Erdogan is supporting ISIS. And so he escaped here. We were 4 speakers, and we were some Turkish people protesting outside, and then security asked us to use the different exit. Otherwise, I didn't have any. I mean, social media, but I feel safe here.
We are safe. We have a lot of dollars.
You are safe here.
Yes, we are safe.
Yeah.
Well, a question for you in terms of, through these years, and you're Robert here in the States, and from your childhood in Kosovo, one question is, what drove you to take on the risks that you did, you're trying to be where you are here, as a young mother as well? What made you get up every day to take on those kind of risks? That's one of my questions. The other is, with respect to Kosovo, it seems like in the radicalization journey, you have to somehow not really teach history. You have to teach ideology.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart to hear about the story of the 2 sons of this Kosovar or
Kosovar, yeah.
This Kosovar. Those sons got radicalized. People here may not remember, but the conflict in Serbia and Kosovo, it was the last major operation that NATO did.
Yeah.
And so you had, and I was involved in that time where you had missions, where you had the German Luftwaffe, British planes, the US planes, all combined focus on a particular mission, but the people that were fighting on the ground were Kosovars.
Yes.
It was
KLA, yeah.
It was the first conflict that was arguably won by air power, but it was really won by the hearts of the Kosovars on the ground. They were supporting them. The second question is ultimately, where do you see Kosovo, the fate of Kosovo now? I mean, is it really in the grips of this radicalization, or where does Kosovo stand right now? Since this moment in 1999, and I didn't know children being named Madeleine Albright.
Yes.
For those who may not know, I mean, she brought
NATO.
Milosevic to the negotiating table,
Yes.
which led to his ultimate imprisonment. But she was that influence that made it happen.
Thank you, Brenda.
We've lived, as I said, living under the regime. I remember there was a time we couldn't go, like where I used to live at that hometown. We couldn't go in the center, like downtown, because of the Serbs. So you would go outside and you would not know what might happen to you. I was 16, we went with my friend outside, the police called, like, do you have ID? And we lived under that regime, and as I lived the war, and in our home, we have all the time the conversation about and freedom, and we've seen the suffering, and then experiencing the war, and as I said, and it starting, especially because I started writing about state building, writing about corruption, and I have to say something, is, as you know now, as a new country, you have a lot of internationals there. You have administrators who are, they are going to have, we had UN there. Why they didn't stop this organization coming in our country? Because the war happened in 1999, we got independence in 2008. We had administrators who were international. They would take decision, not locals, not Albanians. And I remember one one politician, he said that, Arbana, I talked to UN and I said, don't let them because, and you know what they said to him? No, freedom of religion. There are internationals also to be blamed because they could stop them because Kosovo is a bridge. They could use Kosovo to come to Europe. So you invested billions of dollars to save our country and you are allowing these groups? So yes, now we are, as I said, still Kosovo is secular by constitution. We are pro-West, where all of our agenda are, we aim to become an EU member. What was also a mistake, until January 1st, 2024, Kosovo people couldn't travel without visa. It was such painful to see young women and men waiting in front of, hundreds of them in front doors of the embassies, German, Italian, French, begging them for visa to go and travel to Europe. And they will ask a bunch of documents to convince that, yeah, I can issue you visa to go and visit. Of course, when you're isolated, not being able to go outside, you're going to be easily recruited or brainwashed. Now, in January 2024, we are visa-free. Nothing is happening. People are traveling and coming back. You have to go outside. You have to see what West is. You have to see what Western value is. So I blame the big part also international presence. Again, there are small groups. There are radicalized groups, not just in Kosovo. We are seeing in also other parts of Europe. But Kosovo is still pro-West. All of our agendas, though, you have the U.S. Embassy ambassador has a huge impact in our daily politics. What we aim is, which is very important, the Western Balkans to become an EU member, because it's different. Then you have more funds from Europe. Israel recognized our independence. We have now our embassy there. So it's very important to open the doors and not allow, as I said, these powers to fill the gap. As I said, Turks, Saudis, or other Middle Eastern. But still, if you go to Pristina, as a journalist, of course, and I am threatened because I've read all the journalists that escaped. But the professor that I work with, he said, am I safe to go to Pristina? And I said, you are safe, and you're going to have a great time there. So still people, as I said, I'm a journalist, I have to tell the truth. As I said, if you go downtown, you will see coffee bars full of young men and women drinking and very pro-Western.
Okay, David.
Why?
I just want a different
This is a question
opinion.
that I've been asking for the last 20 years. Why don't moderate Muslims speak up and condemn acts of terrorist violence? Are they afraid? Do they secretly agree? Because I helped with
They
Syrian
took over. If you go back how Wahhabists came into power, like right now what is happening in Afghanistan, who can talk there, what they are doing. So in this case, in Kosovo, we had the stories about imams being brutally attacked within their own mosque. Who is going to protect them? Was I protected? You have liberal voices, but then they took over, and as I said, they are ahead of us. These radical imams, they know much better how to use social media and technology than more, I'm not going to say old-fashioned, but this liberal. But I remember before the war, imams will never, if we will pass through the mosque, they will give us fruits. They will not talk to us about religion, right? Now you have them, they have hundreds of thousands of followers on their social media. They don't talk just for religion. They talk about all the ways of life. You can ask them questions about everything. So they are replacing a therapist for you. They are replacing a parent for you. They are replacing, and this is the trend also in other Western countries that is happening.
Okay, and then the second part of that is,
Yeah.
sorry, what is the role of Saudi Arabia in this, and why do you think there's so much
It
focus?
was before. Now it's more of the Turkish, because what Turkey did. Turkey is not going to be an EU member. They don't have a visa. They are not visa free. So what he is trying to do is trying to put the Balkans away, far away from Europe, to increase this conflict. And he started working since 15 years ago. What he did, he had a time when Turkey was economically very good, right? So he started buying assets. Kosovo, after the war, they start privatizing public enterprises. You have factories like, come and buy because the airport was public and we want to privatize. It's open. What he did, he managed to corrupt politicians and he got airport, energy distribution.
Sounds like my home country.
Yeah, and then, in meanwhile, if something happens, he's gonna bring a lot of aid, charity, and this way, he's gonna spread. Like if I say something against Erdogan, I get a lot of reaction, also from people who live in Europe.
Yeah.
Why? As I said, not just Turks. There are also other Muslims who he is using all this. As I said, his agenda is to become a Muslim leader. So,
Gail.
Yeah, what do you think it is in Kosovo society that actually made it fruitful for the madrasas and the Turks to radicalize the people? If they were originally secular Muslims.
yes.
And then one possibility is also that just with the conflict with the Serbs, they just it just sort of polarized their identity to some extent because the Serbs are Orthodox, so they felt they had to be more Muslim than they were before. Are there other elements in the society that led to
No, thank you. As I said, during the war, where my parents, where we used to live, there is a village called Meja. They massacred 300 Albanian Catholics. So they killed Albanians. They didn't kill. Milosevic used a lot of propaganda saying to Western, oh, you are helping this Muslim country. We, as I said, we had nothing. We had Christmas trees in the Albanians' families for New Year's Eve. They celebrate Christmas and all this. So he used this card against us because he knew that we have a lot of international support. No, this radicalized group are coming from this very modern Muslim families that didn't practice religion. They became a part of this group, same as in Brussels, for example, 500 men and women from Brussels who are Christians, they joined Islamic State. So these more became a part of this new ideology, the sense of belonging. This has nothing to do with Serbia or war. No, these are groups that these powers, as Turkey and Saudis, used in Kosovo, in Europe, in Bosnia, in Macedonia, in parts of Serbia. So they managed to recruit young, because knowing that older generation are not going to buy this, but younger generation who don't remember the war as much. But as I said, our state needed the international support to follow the money, to stop them from building illegal mosques. Now, during the Ramadan, I'm doing this investigation about the Turkey. They should not allow them to organize during the fasting, like when they, how they say in English, during the Ramadan, when they eat, like at night. Mm-hmm. So they were, all this organization, almost every city are coming from Turkey, and they have the Turkish flag sign. Mm-hmm. If I was in power, I would not allow that. I would not allow that because I would know what is happening, and I would bring proofs that Erdogan is using this for his agenda, not that he cares about people here. So yes, this has really nothing to do because they are it's nothing to do with the war.
David, you have a question, right?
Yeah, a remark maybe.
Mm-hmm. Please.
I found very interesting what you said about Erdogan and Milosevic, and in the end we see that there's a big picture of geopolitics, and then actors trying to influence populations, and religion is one way to do that. And so I also wanted to take a step and two things. to that point of geopolitics, I feel like it's also the history of Islam. If we look at Islamic sources, Mahomet or Muhammad did not have much success in the first part of his predication, and then when he became a warlord, that's when he became successful. So religion and politics have been, from Islamic sources, intertwined from an early stage. So that's one remark.
Thank you.
But second remark I wanted to make about what you were saying, Dave, about radicalization and how people become more practicing and radical. And you asked, do they agree with terrorists or not? It's also maybe satellite TV and social media and access to information. So nowadays, young radicalized people or young persons, so young persons very idealistic, go by the book. Now they have access to sources of Islam and in Sunni Islam. If you go by the book, you're obliged to do things which you would find in the US or in Western Europe or in any other country, which we would find abhorrent, and which even in Muslim countries, they don't apply the Sharia to the book themselves, actually.
You can see in the past few decades, like I always take an example, and if you could see the movie, the September of Shiraz, it's about what happened in Iran revolution in 1979. It's very interesting to see how left-wing and Islamists became together against the corrupted regime. So this is how they use, like, oh, you are suffering, you have a corrupted regime, let's put them down because we're going to come into the power, everyone will be equal, and we're going to live a happy life, right? What happened? They came to power. They deported all Jewish people. They took all their businesses. If you have 3 TVs, you're going to have only one. 2 of yours are going to go to the other families. They took everything under control. Whoever was pro-Western was arrested or killed. Because Marxists and Leninists and Islamists have the same ideology. They don't want progress. They don't want what Western values are, right? And this is why you find them at the same page. You have atheists that are supporting Islamist groups against West. And you sort of like, wait a minute, but they don't believe, in why they are supporting Islamists, because they both have the common enemy, West.
Yeah.
This is what in Iran, and if you take photos of Afghanistan, they were Muslim before. You have women with short, they were liberal Muslim who would. Today, there was a few weeks ago in Iran, there were protests pro-Israel. The young Iranian people are protesting in support of Israel against their regime because they are live under their regime. See what is happening in Afghanistan after American troops withdraw. What is happening with women in Afghanistan? What power, what a liberal group could survive in Afghanistan or in Iran or in other countries? So, but if we keep these groups isolated in Western countries and not supervised, they are going to grow. They are going to grow because they are all going to find a common enemy. You have to include them, supervise where the money is coming from. You have to be more vigilant because otherwise, remember when they were starting, no, 9/11 Jewish did this. This didn't happen. We came to this point to say that 9/11, someone else did it and not Muslim. These were the voices coming from the Western countries. Who asked me the question, you asked David about this, the protest in Colombia.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It's not just students. They are people that were born here that that became a part.
David, would you like to say something? David from Iran.
Yeah.
So I thought you have to say something.
Okay, first of all, excellent.
Thank you.
Yes, one of the best salons so far.
For me, I thought it was really really a pleasure.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
Thank
for
you all
coming.
for coming.
It was
I really
brilliant.
appreciate.
Loved it.